Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and so basically we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons direct distribution of Dragonlance: Shadow of the Dragon Queen. It's important. I don't know if you know this, but actually the distribution. It's amazing to me when you talk about Dungeons and Dragons. It's so much more important than any other tabletop role-playing game in the world. Like literally every, when you turn one dial on Dungeons and Dragons, one notch, it makes history, right? So like other companies have done what Dungeons and Dragons just did before, but it didn't matter because it's an OSR or it's an indie game, and like 4 people bought it, right? But like this is like, but when Dungeons and Dragons makes a move, arguably most of the time any change on Dungeons and Dragons is literally hitting more people than all OSR and indie games combined, right? So that's why it matters so much, right? So all we're talking about today is just the distribution on Dragonlance: Shadow of the Dragon Queen, because not within tabletop role-playing game history, because what they did has been done before on other products. It just didn't matter. And we see this in other areas, like in streamers. Waco, I think it was like the David Koresh story, was a brilliant mini-series, and it came out on Paramount, and it was brilliant, but it came out like 2 years before it came to Netflix. And when it came to Netflix, everybody saw it, and it mattered, right? Like so that's my point, is what D&D did has been done by other companies, but it didn't matter because nobody saw it, right? Like, and so Dungeons and Dragons really doesn't function like any other role-playing game in the world. It's just above and beyond the entire, not any other role-playing game, but every other, like the entire industry, right? So all they did here was they changed the distribution model, and they did something they had never done before, and that was, hey, give us $77 for one core rule book, right? Now I could have bought this for half that price. I could have bought the same core rule book on Amazon, okay, for literally half that price, right? For like $36, right? And 77, yeah, 78, yeah. So actually $38. I easily could have bought this on Amazon for half the price. So I want to talk today about my experience with what happened, right? So I could have bought this for half the price on Amazon, okay? Now let's get there. What happened to me in my distribution journey with with buying this directly from Hasbro, and what would have happened if I had bought it with Amazon? And let's compare the two, okay? So first of all, I have it now. I paid $77, and I got the non-Lord Soth cover. So I just got the basic cover, which is gorgeous, and I love it. And actually, it's weird. I'm buying the Amazon covers, and everybody's like, "It's not the Amazon cover. It's just not the FLGS cover." Right? I call it the Amazon cover because I think that's the best way to understand it, because that's where most of them are moving. Okay. So I bought the Amazon cover, and I'm starting to buy the Amazon covers because I like how it looks on my bookshelf. I like that that all the books look the same. Whereas if I get the FLGS cover, they all look funky and weird and different on my shelf, right? Whereas if I just buy the Amazon cover, they look unified on my shelf, and I kind of like that, right? Which is kind of odd. I never thought I would prefer the non-FLGS covers to the FLGS covers. And I have the FLGS cover on Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which I gotta admit is pretty darn nice cover. I think that's done by Hydro 76. I'm really hot or cold on his stuff, or her stuff, not sure which. Sorry if I misgendered you, Hydro 76. Legitimately, whatever your preferred gender is, is not obvious from Hydro 76. Okay, so basically, So basically, I got, for $77, I got the regular cover, and I got early access to it on D&D Beyond. That's no small thing. I got it like a month ago. I've had access to this book on D&D Beyond for a month, and honestly, I did not like reading it on D&D Beyond. It was pretty horrible experience. Not because D&D Beyond does a great job of presenting the material electronically, but the full color art with 2-page layout on the physical book is just unmatched. and it will never be matched by. You could put it on a 50-inch screen, and I would still think it sucks compared to because they don't give you a full 2-page spread, and so anybody looking at this stuff on D&D Beyond isn't even seeing what the book designers determined. Like, if you buy D&D Beyond and you don't buy the books, I don't even know where to put you. I don't really think you're a serious D&D experiencer, either a serious D&D dungeon master or a serious D&D player. If you can't see the physical book, like, what are you even doing? I like, because it's just so much more dramatically a powerfully rich experience to just experience this on the physical book, right? But the one thing I did like is people started squawking about it the minute it was on D&D Beyond, and I want to be able to tell the truth. I want to be able to check and see if what they said was true or untrue about the book, right? And I liked being able to dig in and read as much as I wanted and read just sections, right? But also wait for the physical book to get there. So I liked having the early access. It was very nice. And the other thing I like that I have the book on D&D Beyond going forward. And this is the first time I legitimately own something on D&D Beyond that's mine fully, right? So one, I am on there and I am claiming everything. Like, they have this model where you go on to D&D Beyond and you claim content, right? And man, if you're in D&D, if you're in Dungeons and Dragons now and you're not on D&D Beyond claiming material, you are losing out. There's just no two ways about it, right? And because they just put up so much cool stuff, and a whole bunch of adventures, a whole lot of monsters, Vecna, all this stuff, and you just claim the content and then you have it, right? Whereas if you just come in later, the claims are gone. You can't just go back and claim everything, right? And that's interesting. It puts a lot of value on being engaged on D&D Beyond. I love that I own this book on D&D Beyond. I will always use my physical book when I can, but there's going to be times where, like, if I go on vacation or if I'm traveling and I want to dig in and I want to check something on there, it's there, right? And also, if I'm just going to somebody's house to play a game and I want to throw one more book in the bag, it's right there, which is really nice. Also, my phone always has access to this book and I can read it whenever I want. It's really nice. So this is the best of both worlds, having the digital and the physical. Here's where it gets sticky, right? One, Hasbro's distribution of this book was not great. Okay, one, it was not clear where the order came from. I did not get a confirmation email. Everything Amazon does, Hasbro did worse, just flat out, right? And this surprised a lot of people. People are like, "Oh, Hasbro, don't make me." I heard one commentator like, "Hasbro, don't make me wish you were as good as Amazon," with this real dismissive idea that Amazon doesn't distribute well. This is absurd. Amazon is the best shipper in the world, right? So the reality, the fact that Hasbro can't compete with Amazon for shipping is ludicrously simple, and I knew that the moment I ordered it. I knew the experience was going to be worse, and it was worse. It was not clear when it was arriving. The thing is, they fulfilled everything. The fulfillment was real. I got the early access. I got the book. I got the book late. That's not great, and I had to watch while other people were grabbing books off the shelf. I pre-ordered. I should have it first, right? So that was pretty terrible, and I did not like that, right? The one thing I did like is that Hasbro got all the money, right? Like, there's literally $30 or $40 that Hasbro got that is not just sucked up in the Amazon vacuum, and so that's good. I like that. Because I'm rooting for Hasbro. They are the best Guardian Dungeons and Dragons company that has ever Guardian Dungeons and Dragons. There's only been two, TSR and Wizards of the Coast, and Hasbro. Hasbro is the best company Guardian Dungeons and Dragons has ever had, bar none. No two ways about it. They've been much more fiscally responsible. They've put out amazing product. They have catapulted the brand to the moon, right? They've done a lot, and they're the best. That's done and done, okay? Now, would I have been happier if I had got this on Amazon? Here's the other thing. I don't think so, and the reason why is at this point, I want I want, like, I gots to have it. I need that hardback when it drops as it was originally printed. Okay? Because for me, it's either the history of Dungeons and Dragons, like it's the Cthulhu thing all over, right? If you bought deities and demigods with the Cthulhu in it, it's worth a fortune, right? And nobody wants the old they don't want the deities and demigods that doesn't have Cthulhu, right? And so I want first printing. Every time, give it to me. I don't ever want there to be a chance that I'm some sad sack owning a second printing of any book, right? Because I want to see the catastrophic mistake that they made for myself, so I don't have to have other people telling me about it, right? And say, oh yeah, that's as bad as everybody said it was, right? And so I will use the errata on that and not what's in the book, right? But I have the history of what happened, right? Because I need to know the history of Dungeons & Dragons, and you don't know the history of Dungeons & Dragons if you don't own the first print of the book, right? So being a pre-order, it can get to me late, but it's guaranteed it's going to get to me, right? Whereas if I go with Amazon and I go to order, or if I just buy it off my FLGS, it may either sell out or I might end up getting the second printing, and I do not want that ever to happen, right? Dragonlance is a perfect example of this. It's got an evocation mistake that is better than the errata. I'm going to play with it as it was originally printed, right? Now, the Hadozzi thing, I don't use that as it was originally printed. I own it, right? And one thing is when people say, this is terrible, I know that for myself. I don't need people to tell me that, right? I want to know the history, right? And so, I feel like if you don't have first printing, you really don't know the history, right, of what actually happened. So I have to have the first printing. And so this guarantees I'm going to get the first printing directly from Wizards of the Coast. It may be late, right? So the other thing, and so that, I'll tell you right now, I would be heartsick if I spent $38 for a second edition. I would be disappointed, and that book would just cause sorrow every time I held it in my hands, right? I do not ever want a disgusting second printing book in my hands ever. I don't even want to own a second printing, right? And because the reality is, it's either better, right, and the errata's worse, or it's horrible like the Hadozzi thing, but I know what happened. I'm not relying on somebody to tell me that something bad happened. I can see it for myself, right? Because there's a lot of revisionism. And I can tell you right now, people's upset with the Hadozzi was legitimate. That was a bad, there were reasons that Dungeons & Dragons apologizes, and those reasons are real. And I know that not because somebody told me that. I know it because I can see it for myself, right? And so that's the issue there, right? So I don't ever want to own a second printing, and that's a big deal to me, right? I'm willing to pay double price to make sure I always have the first edition, right? And the other thing is my collection is my collection, right? Like my collection is like, I just can't. It is unthinkable to me to own the second edition of any book. Of any Dungeons and Dragons book. Like D&D is just too serious a thing for me to be, some sad sack who shuffles over and buys a second edition. It's just, I cannot do it. I can't do it. I can't be that person, right? It would burn my hands to like, it was just like, oh, like heat metal, right? I just cannot imagine owning a second edition of any Dungeons & Dragons book. It's not a situation I ever want to be in, right? And I will literally pay $38 to never be in that situation. The other thing is, I don't think there's a Scott Garibay who doesn't want to own the digital and the physical going forward. So I'm always going to do this. So the situation was a lot worse than buying from Amazon. But the end is, I'm guaranteed to have the physical. I'm guaranteed to have the electronic. There are benefits on both, right? And I'm guaranteed to have first print, and I will pay double price to do that going forward, right? And honestly, I don't think I will ever buy a Dungeons & Dragons book from any actual merchant, right? That comes out, new book. I don't think I'll ever buy from a merchant again, an FLGS again, and I don't think I'll ever buy from Amazon again, because as bad as this was, I still would have made the same decision. Right, so like it's a big freaking deal. Like, and I appreciate your patience going down this journey, but that's why I actually am very happy I paid $77 because I have the digital, I have the electronic, and I have the first print, and that's what I want. And it's interesting too because going through this, I don't think I really knew what I wanted until I saw all of it and and everything there. That's my journey to owning Dragonlance Shadow of the Shadow of the Dragon Queen in physical and electronic. I'm curious what your journey was, and I'd love to hear. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.